What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're talking about one of my favorite lures, and that is the lipless crank. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Jordan. I'm from the channel TightLineTV. I've been fishing for quite a while, and we like to talk fishing here on the channel. So if you guys are new here, thank you so much for watching. Consider hitting that subscribe button if you guys love to talk fishing. But today we're going to be talking about lipless cranks. So lipless cranks are pretty popular. There's a few out there that, you'll probably find anywhere that you go. So one of the ones that you'll probably see often is going to be a red eye shad. That's a very popular one. This one's like an OG and it's been around for a very long time. This is known as the rattle trap. And then one of my favorites that I have right here in front of me is the prespawn rattlebot. This is a pretty new lipless crank, and I've really grown to love this one since it came out. We'll go into detail about that, but let's talk a little bit about what a lipless crank is. So a lipless crank is a form of crankbait that doesn't have a bill. It's a lot more narrow, and you can fish it a lot of different ways compared to just your average crankbait with a bill. Lipless cranks, they catch fish almost year round, but one time out of the year that the lipless crank really shines is in the spring. It seems like lipless cranks, right in pre-spawn, can get fish fired up more than most of the baits that I personally like to fish. One of the reasons that the lipless crank works so good is because you can cover a ton of water with one. They are loud as heck. You guys hear that? It's not like a normal crankbait where you're kind of dedicated to that bill doing all the work for you. Having that narrow face and the fact that it doesn't have a bill really allows you to be very versatile with it. It's very simple. If you guys aren't too experienced with treble hook baits or crankbaits, you can cast this guy out there and you could reel it straight in and you're gonna catch fish. But you can do other things that will change up your odds as well. Like you can burn it, you could rip it, you could pop it. One way that I really like to fish these guys is to get along a weed line. Cast along the weed line and really hold tight to it. This bait is gonna roll right over there. If you get hung up a little bit in those weeds, you can give it a couple good rips. It's gonna amplify that action, but it's gonna break free of those weeds. And a lot of times in the spring, that's where you're gonna find fish stacked up, is right in those weed lines. So this is just a great way to cover a ton of water and really find fish. I've gone to ponds and lakes where I casted that thing out there, just let it drop. And I've just ripped up, let it drop, ripped up, let it drop. I've vertical jigged these ice fishing and it caught fish. So the opportunities are honestly endless with a lipless crank, and it's just amazing. It's a bait that you need to get hip to, and there's days where you will just have a field day fishing one of these. That's just the best way I can explain it. It's fun. It's so much fun. And then one of the cool things that I love about lipless cranks is the potential to change up your presentation based on the forage that you're fishing. Now, this specific reason is why I grew to love the prespawn rattlebot. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen these before. They are pretty new, but they were specifically designed to imitate two different presentations. The first one being a crawfish, or crawdad, whatever you want to call them, or baitfish. This to me is drastic, and it's really given me a reason to fish different lipless cranks in different scenarios. Let's say it's early on in the spring and I'm really trying to key in on crawfish. In the springtime, you like to fish those red colors. A lot of people get out there, they'll fish crawdad color everything. Like spring is the main time that you're fishing those red colors. The prespawn rattlebot specifically designed their crawfish presentation to sound more like crawfish. So check this out. You have a really deep rattle. It's a lot more subtle, and that is awesome. Now, if you guys are a little bit confused on why that makes a difference, let's compare it to their baitfish version. The baitfish version is designed to sound more like a school of bait fish. So when I rattle this one, it's a lot more high pitch. Listen to these side by side. That to me really changes things up. Like when you pick up a different presentation of the same bait, you are literally getting different sounds, different looks. For me personally, that's a big deal. And this bait in particular catches me fish. And that is why I've grown to love this specific lipless cranks. So for me, it's really cool that this bait has been around for a long time, but there's so many different versions of it. I mean, look at this. Even aside from the rattlebot, I mean, just look at these three right here. Every single one of them is significantly different in shape, size. The opportunities are endless. It's one of those baits where you can really change it up and just catch more fish. And then lastly, let's talk about the rod setup that I'm fishing with a lipless crank. For the most part, I'm fishing a medium heavy, moderate rod. And the reason I like to fish like a moderate rod is because anytime that I'm fishing treble hooks, I want a little more bow in that rod. I want those treble hooks to lock. Sometimes with like a fast action, you can rip that treble hook out of there. So for that hook to really get set in there, I like to have just something to ease into it. Paired with that, I like to have a faster gear ratio reel, not like super fast, but I'm talking like 7 to 1, for the reason that I'm changing it up so much with a lipless crank. Now, I'm not always fishing lipless cranks super fast, but I want to be able to pick up that slack if I'm in the scenario where I'm gonna be ripping them. So if I'm ripping it through weeds or I'm popping it off the bottom, I wanna pick up that slack and I wanna keep up with that bait because these do tend to sink pretty fast and you can really get them ripping. So I like to have, a faster gear ratio reel, and then I'm throwing fluorocarbon. For the most part, the size of the fluorocarbon that I'm throwing is going to depend on the body of water that I'm fishing. There's times where I'm fishing 10 to 12 pound. There's times where I'm fishing, 14, 15. It just really depends on, the kind of cover around and, that whole ordeal. So line is going to be somewhat personal preference, but I am always throwing fluorocarbon. So there you guys have it. There's a quick little 101 breakdown on lipless cranks. If you guys can't tell, I get pretty amped up talking about these things just because I've just grown to love them so much. So if you guys aren't too hip to fishing crankbaits, this is going to be a really great one for you to get out and try and fish. It's very simple, no matter what your experience level is, and it can be a lot of fun. You can find yourself getting on a really good bite with these. So I encourage you, just get out there, fish one. If you guys are interested in any of the ones here that I showed you today, hit the link in the description down below. We'll have them all linked up for you. Other than that, hey, if you guys are new here, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Carl's, and I'll see you in the next one.